Hi booktube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching my channel, Books I'm Not Reading. I am here today to review the winner of the Pulitzer Prize for fiction in 2022. This is Joshua Cohen's book called The Netanyahus, an account of a minor and ultimately negligible episode in the history of a very famous family. And that picture on the cover is very appropriate for the book. So I am feeling very out of my depths and in doing this review. I hope that more people will make reviews of this book that I can watch and see their perspective on. This book was published of course in 2021. And that was the year that Benjamin Netanyahu was no longer the prime minister of Israel. There was a lot, again, continued conflicts between the Palestinians and the Israelis along the Gaza Strip. And so I think in a weird way, like it was maybe more timely than Joshua Cohen had expected when he was writing it. Now, when it says the Netanyahus, I mean, it is talking about Benjamin Netanyahu's family, but primarily his father, whose name was Zion Netanyahu. But before we get into the actual Netanyahus, they're in, you know, a good chunk of the book, but they're not, I wouldn't say, Zion Netanyahu is not the main character of the book. The main character of the book is Reuben Blum. And he says in the book that, you know, yes, he's a Jewish historian, but he's not a historian of the Jews. He's actually a taxation historian. So more on the economic side of things. But he and his wife Edith and their daughter Judith move outside of New York City to upstate New York, and he works for a fictional university, Corbin University, I believe it is. It takes place in the late 1950s, I think kind of culminates in 1960. And so Reuben is the first Jew to work for Corbin University. There's never been a Jewish employee at this university. In preparing to make this video, I tried to read some of the themes that critics had written about this book, which I wasn't able to find very many, but you know, there's a lot in here about well, there's the undercurrent, maybe that's the best way to describe it. There's the undercurrent of the Jewish diaspora, Jewish history, which, you know, for me is like, my experience with that would be like the first 5 books of the Bible. Jewish American assimilation, and what does that look like? And I also really felt there was a deep undercurrent of anti-Semitism and discussing that. I'm not saying like Joshua Cohen is anti-Semitic, obviously, but that was something that really struck a chord with me, because I do feel like we're living in a time where suddenly that is an okay thing again. We definitely have, I don't know. I'm really surprised that has emerged over the last few years. Maybe I shouldn't be, I don't know. But I still remember the pictures of all of the young people, I think it was in Vanity Fair, who were making the Heil Hitler sign, and I was just so shocked. I felt very old and really appalled that anyone would think that was okay, that was now like suddenly becoming acceptable behavior again. Very disturbing. So I thought that was important that was in this book. But But Reuben experiences anti-Semitism on in his workplace in a number of ways. For one thing, at the history department Christmas party, he has to play Santa Claus because that way all the people who actually celebrate Christmas can enjoy themselves. And so he has to be Santa. He gets on the hiring committee that they're looking at hiring another historian, Zion Netanyahu. And, Reuben's very confused by this at first because their areas of study are very different. Their kind of emphasis in history are very different. But it's kind of written off like, well, you're a Jew, so like you take care of him, make sure he gets to all the places that he needs to go for this interview. There's, like drinks and dinner, and there's like a public talk and those sorts of things. And yeah, like it's just like he goes along with it because he feels like he has to, but he doesn't. And those are like, there's some really just madcap scenes with Reuben's family and the Netanyahus. So just to tell you a little bit more about Zion Netanyahu, he studied the Inquisition. He actually wrote, I couldn't believe this, Origins of the Inquisition in 15th Century Spain. It was 1,400 pages long. I'm not joking. This is real. And one of the things that Zion Netanyahu, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes. He believed that that Jewish people had in history converted to Catholicism, but then the Catholics decided to put them through the Inquisition and kill them anyway because being Jewish wasn't so much a religion as it was being a race. And you can never eliminate that, right? But anyway, so the other historians, including Reuben, really question where he's getting his source information from, what proof is there of this kind of thing, and Zion Netanyahu feels like that is being anti-Semitic to him. And they ask him at one point during his interview, like, what do Jewish people think of your studies? And he, I think Zion Netanyahu is shocked that he somehow has to, is expected to speak for all Jewish people, right? So anyway, it was a really challenging book. I think the parts where it goes more into Zion Netanyahu's thoughts about the history of the Jews. It's very much like the Jewish people just suffer one Holocaust after another. I have to say though, I will give Joshua Cohen props because there are some absolutely hysterical scenes in this book. My feeling was like if there were 4 adults in a room, it was gonna be hysterical. So like Edith's parents come to visit them, and they're these very kind of upper class, Jewish people, and they're inspecting the house and all this kind of stuff. Edith's mother actually points out to Reuben, like as far as his being on this hiring committee for this Jewish historian that no one knows anything about the Netanyahus at that time, right? So she said, well, if you recommend him, they're going to say that it's Jewish favoritism. And if you tell them not to hire him, they're going to say it's because you don't want to appear like you have Jewish favoritism. So anyway, so that was, but their dialogue is just hysterical. Anyway, and then of course Reuben's parents also come to visit on a separate trip, which is even wilder. So yeah, there's stuff with the daughter Judith, that's just, I don't know, unbelievable in the best way possible, I guess, maybe. So yes, there were times where I was smiling, I was laughing, getting through some of the more kind of academic parts of the book were a little bit challenging for me. And again, I am like, please understand, I'm not an expert on this kind of stuff. Like, I think there's a lot of people out there in America who know more about Jewish history than I do, and this book would definitely resonate more for them than it did for me. Interesting story though. So the book is dedicated to the late Harold Bloom, and Joshua Cohen, to my understanding, I don't think he was ever one of Harold Bloom's students. He just became, he went to see Harold Bloom in his home as he was getting, I think he was in a wheelchair at the time. And yeah, like Joshua Cohen, the two of them visited quite a bit. And at one point, Harold Bloom told Joshua Cohen the story that he had given this Israeli historian a tour of Cornell University, and that some chaos had ensued from there. We're not really given Harold Bloom's version of the story, but after Harold Bloom dies, for some reason that story just sticks with Joshua Cohen. He just can't let it go. He asks Harold Bloom's widow if she's okay if he writes a story, and Reuben Blum is not meant to represent Harold Bloom by any means. The family that's the main characters in this are not Harold Bloom's family or anything like that. The Netanyahus, it's a little harder to change them around and speculate on what kind of conversations, they might have had. So anyway, that's kind of the origin of the story, which I thought was really interesting. Joshua Cohen did try to get permission from Harold Bloom's daughter as well, like her blessing, I guess, if you will, on the book. And she sends him this really, really crazy email, and he includes it in the back of the book. So that was just kind of like a little bonus there. But anyway, I do think for me, what I took away from it was, what anti-Semitism maybe looked like in America in the late 1950s. This is supposed to be idyllic time in American history, but it's like we're still struggling with it and not over it. So that's what I really took away from it. I think depending on when people read it, in regards to Benjamin Netanyahu no longer being prime minister and some other conflicts, it was a much more meaningful reading experience. And I also think that, anyone, again, who's more familiar with Zionism and the ideas of Jewish American assimilation and America's involvement in the state of Israel, all of that kind of stuff. If you know more about that, then this book will probably be a hit for you. I thought it was, I really enjoyed the humor in it. I thought it was great. Some of it was just really, really fantastic. And he clearly knows how to write. He is a good writer. I think, like I said, for me, the parts that lagged a bit were the more academic, kind of cerebral discussions that take place regarding the history of the Jews and what you believe and what other historians say is not true. So if you've read this book, I'd love to hear what you think of it. Please let me know in the comment section down below. I know some of you have DNF'd to this book. Some of you have listened to or listening to it or were listening to it on audio. And I understand there's like some music from the time and maybe some Jewish music like on the audio version, which I think is really cool. But anyway, so love to know what you think of this book. I look forward to hearing from you down below in the comment section. Booktube, remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.